Reason you have carpal tunnel syndrome is muscle imbalance.
Ouch! Hands and wrists hurting again? Oh, soreness and tingling in your fingers? Is pain in your hands, wrists, or forearms slowing you down? Or even interfering with your job? Well, you can't just ignore it because it won't go away. If you experience tingling or loss of feeling in your fingers or thumbs, weakness or pain in your hands, wrists, or forearms, you may be suffering from a common painful condition, carpal tunnel syndrome.
Phalen's test. Hold the backs of the hands together in a T shape for 1 minute. Tinel sign. Lightly tap over the nerve. If positive, the darkened area of the palm will experience tingling or numbness.
Is if you don't take action, your problem will get worse.
Tying rebar is hard, physical work. It's also an example of a job that involves repetitive use of the wrist. Use that can cause problems such as carpal tunnel syndrome. To understand carpal tunnel syndrome, it helps to understand the anatomy of the wrist. The wrist contains tendons and nerves inside a narrow tunnel. This narrow tunnel, the carpal tunnel, has a fixed diameter. In carpal tunnel syndrome, symptoms occur when there is pressure on the median nerve. This pressure on the nerve in the narrow tunnel of ligaments and bones causes the symptoms. Some of the symptoms
We give corticosteroid shots, and then we also consider surgery, which is only 50 to 60% of the time is going to be effective.
Many solutions have been recommended by big medicine to address the rapid increase of carpal tunnel syndrome in recent times. Workers who are not mindful of the physical demands of their employment are most susceptible to inflict damage on their bodies. The following program will train you in the art of self-healing, specifically foraging for mushrooms that are used to alleviate the symptoms of carpal tunnel syndrome. Learning how to use a guidebook is one of the most important skills you will need for mushroom hunting. You will want to look for guidebooks in antique stores that specialize in print media from the 20th century. These relics of a bygone era gained popularity within the substrata of the American Empire. These pioneers fetishized a return to pastoral life, which helped to preserve many of the practices that sustained society during the global infrastructure collapse of the 20s. These books contain pictures of specimens, useful foraging advice, identification hints, and even recipes. However, these books do lack critical information on the medicinal properties which have been discovered in recent years. Because these books were published in the nanny-state era, we are unsure whether or not their authors had any sense of individual responsibility over their health care and survival. Likely, the authors were writing to the idle inhabitants of public housing who use state parks to entertain themselves while searching for meaning in their lives. Another source of valuable information exists in the archives containing the Internet of Ideas, also referred to as Web 2.0. These remains contain valuable information that citizens use to foolishly produce and disseminate for free. You can now purchase access to many of these files from Google. Our mission for today will be to collect enough mushrooms in order to sustain treatment until we can afford to take another day off. We will be in search of a gelatinous wood crust mushroom that can be brewed like we brew tea. This specific type of mushroom serves its purpose in nature by decomposing dead hardwoods and can typically be found in humid climates in the Northeast Territories of the Americas. You will want to make sure that you consult your field manual so that you do not mistakenly collect the wrong type of mushroom. Many field manuals will have colored pictures that aid you in identifying the appropriate species so that you do not waste your time collecting the wrong species. One strategy for locating these mushrooms is to look for areas where trees have fallen or where foliage is bare. It is important to seek out these mushrooms just during the winter thaw so you can ensure your access to ample supplies before other mushroom hunters pick over the supply. Winter is an important element for the healing properties of these mushrooms. You will want to seek out mushrooms that have been dried naturally by the dry winter air. This will ensure maximum potency and decrease the risk of contamination that is present when drying the mushrooms unnaturally in overpopulated humid environments. The most important part of your harvesting mission is to allow yourself to relax so you are rejuvenated for work the next day. Our ancestors found great rest and relaxation in the forests that insulate our cities from one another. New research is finding that forests may help to restore feelings of rootedness that have been swept away in the great migrations of the 20th century. After taking a moment to reflect, it is time to get back to our mission. If you can find mushrooms on the ground that have not begun to form a layer of algae, you can easily harvest them with your hands. However, the most successful harvest will require some more work. The most prized of gelatinous wood crust will be high up out of your reach on the bark of dead trees that have not yet fallen. You will not want to try to climb these trees because of the risk that they may break and send you crashing to the ground, possibly injuring your body. You will want to find a sturdy stick that you can use to scrape the bark clean. This stick will need to be long and strong and down to get the friction on. Once you have selected a stick, you can begin to scrape the mushrooms loose from the tree. This will take some coordination so that you may get the rhythm down and make your job easier. Remember to leave a few mushrooms on the tree to allow the spores to release, so that there will be a bountiful harvest in the coming seasons. Keep in mind that 1 cup of tea requires a heaping teaspoon of these dried gelatinous wood crusts, and you will likely need to find dozens of trees in order to accumulate enough mushrooms to last you until the next harvest. When you have finished scraping, you will need to scour the forest floor for the mushrooms you have dropped. You will want to store these mushrooms in a fine mesh bag or cloth until you get back to your transport. At this point, you will want to remember to seal them tightly in a plastic bag to avoid contamination. Mushrooms absorb harmful toxins from the environment, which will become an ingredient in your tea if you are not mindful of this fact. Thank you for joining us today. More tutorials like this can be accessed through the Amazon Global Holodeck by searching your ailment plus the individuator code 7779311. Happy hunting!